Good evening, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I'm on tonight to help try to show everybody how you destroy the motor vehicle code. That word motor, those words motor vehicle, which are connected together and make terms and conditions of a contract. And we're going to do that by showing you how the construction of the codes, the United States Code, your state statutes, the UCC, all the way down through your county codes and your municipalities and international codes. And this is the way it's set up. We're going to start out talking about the actual government, the actual American government, and what it has to do with all of it. Well, in order for it to be able to incorporate agencies of service, they have to be able to have a contract, an enforceable contract. That enforceable contract comes from the international community because it is a nation of states. In order to be able to perform in goods, the sale of goods here locally, we have to be able to import goods from other nations. They have to have a contract with those other nations, and that is called a contract on the international sale of goods. Okay? Now those goods are fuels, intangible materials, patents, things like that, copyrights, things like that. And that's their contract. The CISG is the government contract with the international community. Now the government has those agencies that have been incorporated under that contract as a corporation itself called the United States. That United States has a constitution and a set of regulations. The Constitution that United States has is basically the same as the Constitution of the American government. Reworded a little bit differently, sounds quite familiar, but it applies only to their employees. Now mind you, understand this. The American government that is now contracted on the international forum, the constitution for that is their constitution that applies to them. It still does not apply to us. We are merely able to use our international status as an Iowan, as one of the states, to be able to enforce that international contract upon the American government to make their corporation abide by that superior contract. And that's all we're doing. We're not applying it to us. We're applying our rights that they know of and clarify in those constitutions under the international forum. International Declaration of Human Rights. Okay? That's where we go to assert those rights. Now, when it comes to your state statutes, under the U.S. Code, the U.S. Code has the Federal Acquisitions Regulations Act. Now, this is in regards to the acquisition of goods. Where are they getting their goods? They're selling them or buying them from the international market, selling them to the states. The states try to maintain property rights over all kinds of things like the motor vehicle. And we'll get into that here real shortly. But first I want to finish explaining the codes in regards to this. So your state statutes, through the Federal Acquisitions Regulations Act, in order to be able to acquire goods internally from the states as well, that's their contract. Acquisitions Regulations. And when we look at that, it says contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes or executive order hyphen commercial item. Okay? So now the American government makes their acquisitions under the contracts on the international sale of goods from the international community, and they're making their, which is imports, and they're making their acquisition of materials from their states for their exports. Okay? So that's what the Federal Regulations, Federal Acquisitions Regulation Act does, and it works both ways. But it has to abide by, again, that contract on the international sale of goods. In order for them to export to the international community, they have to have that within that contract on the international sale of goods, because now they're selling goods. Okay? So now, that means that all of your state statutes, all of your federal statutes and codes are merely contracts. Pure and simple. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay? Now, those contracts within the United States, to help clarify it for the general population, the general public, not the special public, the general public, the one that's performing these contracts. That is the presumption of what general public is. Anybody that signs that something is part of the general public, and they make general appearances. Okay? They're making general appearances in court because it's a contract court. And they're presumed to be part of the general public because they've always signed as such. As an authorized representative, which is an agent performing commercial contracts within the United States and the states under the Federal Acquisitions Regulations Act. Okay? So they're asserting that you're performing commercial acts as well. The problem with that is the capacity of authorized signature, authorized representative. And what happens is, when we use the UCC code within the United States, and we're tying the state statutes to the United States through the Federal Acquisitions Regulations, and it's all contract, and then we've got the general public following the UCC code, which specifically states many things. But the one we're going to talk about today, and I've talked about the 1-202 is notice and knowledge, 1-308 is your reservation of rights, 1-303.3 is the uniform. The laws are to be uniform throughout all jurisdictions. Okay? Now, even though that's the UCC within the United States, like it says, throughout all jurisdictions, that means that part of the UCC is actually coming from the contract on the international sale of goods. They're saying the laws there are supposed to be uniform down through all jurisdictions, including your county codes and your local city municipalities, because they're under contract as well. It's all contract law. But the difference is your counties, states, and municipalities are under contract through the United States. And they're the ones we have to enforce the CISG, the contracts on the international sale of goods, against, in order to get them to make the states, counties, municipalities, as well as the United States abide by that CISG. How do we do that? Myself, I'm proving it. No signatures. I've got about 3 years of signatures where I gave UCC 1-308, and then I realized even that wasn't good enough. And so I just quit signing anything. And like I discussed earlier, somebody says, well, what if somebody just starts signing your name again? Well, that's going to be a problem because I'm no longer even going to use a signature. That's a second language. It's called cursive. It's not common English. And to back that up, we have signature, autograph, and mark. So if I ever sign anything in the future, I'm going to make it a mark, and it will be specific to that document. So every document or instrument that I ever place any kind of symbolic message on it, I will be a keeper of my records, and it will be in code. And that will be my mark. Anything you say or anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Use the right words, folks. So anyway, now we've got the UCC, and like I said, I've talked about the 3-402B, subsection 1, where it talks about authorized representative not liable. 9-402 says that the secured party is not obligated on contract of debtor. 9-307 explains the location of the debtor. Subsection H tells you the United States is located in Washington, D.C. So all of those are mentioned, but the most important part here in regards to these contracts that I'm talking about is 9-102. 9-101, 9-102, where it talks about goods. Okay? And goods are defined by use. Okay? And remember, this is uniform throughout all jurisdictions. Okay? So when we get to the United States Code and we start, let's start out with the state statutes first. State statutes, everybody's looking for the definition of motor vehicle. And they look up all these case laws and everything. Same with the federal code. So looking up the definition of motor vehicle in the United States Code and looking at all the federal case law. Okay? They're all giving all kinds of different definitions. And even the MCO, which I'll make a real quick note here, comes from an automobile manufacturer, goes to an automobile dealership. You get automobile insurance. And yet the MCO says that it's a motor vehicle. Now remember, I said goods are defined by use. Okay, you cannot produce a good called an automobile. Call yourself an automobile manufacturer. Sell it through an automobile dealership. Require automobile insurance. And then claim that it's going to be used that's a future tense word, as a motor vehicle. Particularly if it's brand new and never been used. All you got to do is beat their fallacies with logic. Like I said, mathematics. Put shit in timelines and figure this shit out. So when we talk about goods, and we're talking about the contracts on the international sale of goods, which the United States is bound by, and then under the United States Code, they change it from sale of goods to trade or business, which only applies to public officials. Okay? Now, when we talk about the motor vehicle codes, or the motor vehicle definitions, and you see them in all these different codes, they're only defining them according to opinions. But the important part, again, goes back not to the definition, but to the contract. Because the contract is the power of enforcement, not the definition. Okay, so if you have a contract and the terms and conditions in there as defined in the contract are correct, then it's supposedly a good contract. However, if they're false, contract is void. And it's not dismiss for void. It's not discharge for void. It's vacate for void. It was no good to begin with. Period. So now, when we look at the motor vehicle lease, motor vehicle operator's lease, and it tells us that there's supposed to be a separate statement signed under penalty of perjury that the operator intends to use the motor vehicle as registered and proven by a certificate of title that he intends to use it at least 50% of its use for trade or business. That means he's using it within the United States and not under his own national private capacity. And that's his intent. And again, that he's going to do it at least for 50% of its use. Now, if he's going to do it for at least 50% of its use, and this is the big fallacy that they have in all traffic citations against private travelers, is where is the time logs proving that it was operated at least 50% of the time for trade or business, let alone intended to be used that way, let alone was it used that way at all. They can't prove any of it. And it even says right in the motor vehicle operator's lease, lessor must not know certification is false. And that right there is your key to beat every motor vehicle traffic citation. I'm sorry, Your Honor, but the motor vehicle operator's lease I have found out to be false. It clearly states that there must be a separate statement under penalty of perjury clarifying my intent and that it would be used at least 50% of its use for specifically trade or business. And trade or business under the United States Code is the act of a public official. I am not a public official. I do not use it at 50% of its use for trade or business. I never intended to do so. And therefore, any operator's lease agreement is false. Would you care to proceed in these matters? Proving fraud upon the court, intrinsic fraud, fraud upon the person, fraud upon the people, fraud upon myself. Who, in any capacity, any status, any standing, has time logs proving both that I am operating for a trade or business and that I have taken an oath of office as a public official. No one. And I have a clearly established record now. Not only have I not used any Social Security, no benefits from the state, medical, food stamps, given no signature in 3 years, haven't had a bank account in 3 years, taking no benefits, giving no signatures, and doing everything in my power to use the most critical weapon I have as the most powerful tool I can to fix this. And I can't fix it for everybody else. I can only fix it for me. But I'm trying to help you understand how this all works. Every time you're signing a signature, you're using a second language a contractual language because it can be broken down to its original form. Just like homeless. That's two words put together makes a term that can be contracted down to its individual parts and therefore is contractual. Contract terms and conditions. The condition is you have to put two words together. The condition is you're using two languages. The condition is this. The condition is that. Do you understand the conditions? Do you understand what's causing things? Etiology. E-T-I-O-L-O-G-Y. Do you understand the root words? The root cause and the root knowledge of everything that's happening to you? Money. It went from contracts on the international sale of goods, which is a fair exchange, to a commercial system using currency called Federal Reserve notes that are taxed for their use for record keeping of acquisitions. Who's acquiring what? The IRS. Look up the definition of acquisitions and you'll find it under IRS. Instruments. Everything you sign is an instrument. Everything you pass, a credit card, a dollar bill, a $5 bill, a check, a money order, it's an instrument. You're being played. So anyway, I'm hoping everybody understands that. I've got a perfect record of proving that UCC 1-308 before a signature, and like I said, I've used a signature. When you use UCC 1-308, that's a reservation of rights that's uniform throughout all jurisdictions. That means you're reserving your rights in every capacity, for every status, for all standings, in all jurisdictions, in all matters, no matter what. So when you go to court and you're standing there in trial, and you're at the point where you're discussing whether you want a jury trial, a trial by jury, or a bench trial, and you decide that you want a trial by jury, and the cocksucker sits there and tries to tell you, well, you got to sign this waiver form. No, you don't. And I'm proof. I didn't sign no papers during their entire process. But again, like I said, though I was found guilty, it's all part of the process. I've been discharged. Discharged from that guilty sentence, from the conviction, from the carrying out of the charges. Did so without signing. Even though, again, they tried to convince me I had to sign. Nope. So all their paperwork now has a track record, not of me the 3 years prior to that where I signed, but I used reservation of rights under UCC 1-308. But now I've got a record of not signing, and it's on their side again because now they're the ones refused to sign. They're the ones placing it in their own records. So please, call up your records so I can prove. In the meantime, if you don't, then you have a null-teal record, which means no such record. So where the fuck is your record? That I'm under contract. Sorry, can't do it. Critical thinking, people. Beat these cocksuckers with logic and rationality. And like I've been talking about lately, your best way to do that is through Socratic debate. Learn how to be mature and responsible, respectful of the other party, but don't back down. You don't have to go into these court cases like I've done in the past, cussing and swearing. I've learned I don't even do that. The last time they tried to accuse me of practicing law, I smiled at him and just told him, I'm just going to subpoena the state licensing commissioner and put him on the stand and ask him a couple questions real quick. You know. Go sit down. So think about this stuff and realize that all you got to do is break down those words that have been put together. Contract them down to reality and realize what they're telling you. Every last bit of it's fake. Title 26 of the United States Code, Section 7806. That's the IRS code again. And you'll see where it says has no legal effect. So again, if the motor vehicle operator lease is in the Title 26 of the United States Code, and it has no legal effect, then how the fuck is the state supposed to be enforcing something that they're saying they have to abide by that has no legal effect? Fucking idiots. Don't put me on the stand. Don't try to help me. Don't get me to try to inform a jury. Don't put me in a cell and lock me up with other people that'll listen to me. I'll break it down real simple and show you common sense. KISS. Everybody wants to say keep it short, stupid. I don't like that word stupid, so I use it keep it short, Socratic. Kind of hard to beat that logic in any kind of debate. So it keeps the debate short. Keep it short, Socratic. Use your common sense. Start waking people up, becoming aware of this information and exactly how it works. Contract on international sale of goods is what the United States government, the American government, has a contract through, and that's that Constitution with the rest of the general public on this side. And then the Declaration of Human Rights is on the other side. So they enforce this Constitution upon its general public, the public officials. And then, of course, the corporate United States has its Constitution and it's the regulations that it enforces upon its servants, agencies, agents, corporations, subcorporations, states, counties, municipalities, elected officials, appointed officials. They call them elected, but they're not elected, they're voted. They're voted. You use voting rights to elect them. So there's an unlawful conveyance there. People don't elect corporate officials, corporate executives. They elect governing bodies under good faith. And I just posted something on that as well. Good faith is listed under your contract on international sale of goods, along with termination, cancellation in person. Contract on international sale of goods has a definition of persons. So think about where the definitions are, what they mean, where they're at. Motor vehicle in the United States Code says something different than the motor vehicle definition in all different 50 states. And they use all kinds of different case laws, but not a bit of it fucking makes a difference. The reality is, the certification is false. I had no intention of acting or performing in trade or business as a public official at least 50% of its use, let alone at all. I never took an oath. Are you a fucking moron? That's a pretty fucking wild assumption. Not a fucking bit of proof on the record. Fucking morons. So think about this stuff. And remember, people, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be doing this. I hope you catch on to it real quick because it's that simple. God bless you all. I love you. Have a great night. Bye-bye.